Hi everybody, it's Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hineni. And before I explain this monstrosity on my desk, this is Tuesday, the 30th of July. It's 2 weeks and 2 days since my husband's death in a car crash. So this is from his pickup truck. We went up and got stuff from the pickup truck a week ago, but I had another opportunity to on Monday, and so I went back because there were some things that I realized I hadn't gotten that I needed, and so we went back, and the person who helped us this time was the man who had gathered the things that had flown all over the place from his truck and had put them in the bed of the truck and had towed the truck to the wrecking yard. So he was able to tell me a lot. And for example, this had been thrown way far away across a fence and into another street. And I don't know what this is called. I think it's part of the engine. It might be a radiator. It kind of looks like a radiator in your house, but I don't know. I don't know the parts of an engine. So if somebody could tell me, that would be a wonderful first step. It's got, can you see this part connected to it? If you need me to send pictures, I'm happy to, but I would really like to identify this. The first time that I saw it in the back of the pickup, I wanted it, but I didn't say anything and I didn't take it. And I'm so glad that we got to go back, because this time, it took me the whole time that we were there to get up the courage to say that I wanted it. And I think my parents understood. The guy who was from the wrecking thing probably didn't, but he was very kind and carried it for me. He got it out of the truck and carried it for me, and put it into the car, into my parents' car, and he told me that it had been thrown far away. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with it. I just felt called to it. I do think that I want to make it into some kind of piece of art, but I don't want to obscure it in any way. Bill loved flowers, and I did too, and we always got flowers, and we were planting flowers and stuff. And so I'm thinking maybe these things can be made into like some kind of vase, or maybe even to plant flowers. I'm not sure. It's probably not enough soil would be able to go in there to plant some flowers, and I want to have it inside the house. It's probably not going to get a great deal of sunshine. I'm not sure where I'll put it in my house, but there's just a lot of, and I told his granddaughter about it, a little afraid that she would think I was being disrespectful in some way, but she totally got it. Neither of us could really completely put it into words, but she really understood why I needed to have this, and she said, "You're going to make something beautiful out of it." And I'm not sure that I can make something beautiful out of it, but I think it will have beautiful meaning. I think part of it, I realized today, is kind of like, how people, when somebody dies in a car accident, people put a cross there and they put flowers on it. That just has never really done anything for me. I know it really does for a lot of people, and that's great if it does. That's great. But for me, it just doesn't really do anything, and it's so far away I wouldn't be able to keep it up or anything. I need something closer. So I think this is maybe kind of that. There's also this conflicting feeling for me. The car failed him. It wasn't the car's fault, really, and I can tell you about that in a minute. But the car failed him, and so I should be angry at it. But at the same time, this was the last thing that he was in, that he was completely alive, and so it's just really important to me in that respect too. And I'm just not sure what else. I am kind of sort of an artist. I do sell some of my artwork, but I don't really think that I'm very good. But Bill loved my artwork, so I know that he would love me doing something with this, and he loved the kind of weird stuff that I like to do. I've never done something three-dimensional sculpture-y like, so it may be a long time before I even start doing something on this. But I'm kind of excited about it, but I have seriously no inkling of what I'm going to do. So I just wanted to tell you about that, in case maybe you have a weird feeling about something that you want. Get it. It's like I almost lost the opportunity to have this, and I think that it's something that's going to be very, very precious to me. I think it's going to be something that's really important. So just a little bit more about what we did yesterday. Yesterday was really, oh my word, it was a full day. But like I said earlier, the accident happened almost 3 hours away, 2.5 to 3 hours away. And so it's not like I can go do one of the things one day and another thing the next day or anything like that. So it's like everything has to be done in one day when we take a trip up there. And so it's physically exhausting, it's mentally and emotionally exhausting. It's just very trying and very traumatic. And so yesterday, the first place that we stopped off was at the Tennessee Highway Patrol, where the headquarters where the troopers were that dealt with the accident. And I had been dealing with a particular trooper who was just wonderful. And they've all kind of mentioned that they're really trained to be this way, but there's just, and maybe they are, they probably are, but there is a certain part of your person that I think you put into something like this. And each of the troopers that I dealt with in this whole thing had a different kind of sensitivity and kindness, and they offered something different. And man, I am so impressed with them. I just can't even say how impressed with them. And I'm not going to say names because I'm like, we were asked not to share pictures and stuff. So I want to be careful about that, and I want to respect that. So I wish I could call out their names and say these guys are heroes, but let's just say all the troopers are heroes. They really are. So anyway, so this particular trooper, I had asked him if I could see the 2 videos that were taken of the actual accident when it happened. Apparently a lot of people have dash cams these days. And in fact, he said he had just gotten one for his wife. And so it's not uncommon for people to have this and for accidents to now be recorded, which really helps, because when you are trying to deal with witnesses to something like this, everybody has a different version, and it's very hard to figure out exactly what happened. But with a video, you can see exactly what happened. And I told him about the recurring visions I was having of what happened, which I actually have found out since then is very normal when there's been a traumatic death, a sudden death. It's basically what I thought was happening. Is my brain was like a computer playing scenarios over and over, trying to look for what made sense. And so they call them instant replays, and it just like happens over and over. So that was a normal thing. The things that I showed you about worship and stuff, those helped. Those really did help. And they gave me some relief from it, which I needed, because this is not, the instant replay thing doesn't seem to be, nobody that I've read about it seems to think that it's very useful or helpful. It's just something that causes you more anxiety. So, they all had suggestions for how to stop it. None of them being the ones that I was given, which I think were really the best for me, because I am so into worship and scripture and everything. So the suggestions that my friends gave me were so awesome. But what finally stopped those completely, I have not had one since, was seeing those videos. And they were incredibly hard to see. They were very traumatic. And I have to say, I can't recommend that if you go through something like this, that you see the videos. I tend to be able to handle things like that a little bit better than most people. I nursed my son while he was being circumcised. I held my baby daughter while she had her head stitched, and there wasn't enough room for a nurse because I was holding her, but I wouldn't let her go. That's just how I am. And I used to be a medical transcriptionist, so I typed brain surgeries and stuff like that. And when I didn't understand what the doctors were saying, I went and I looked for a video of that kind of surgery on YouTube and watched him. So I'm probably able to handle a little bit more than a lot of people. So please don't think that I'm suggesting that you would go and watch the video of your loved one's accident if that happens and that's available. You have to figure out if that would help you. For me, it was really hard, and at one point I really thought I was having a heart attack. But it was worth it. It was very helpful. So I'm not going to go into I'm going to go into some detail, but there wasn't anything gruesome, like I didn't see blood and guts or anything like that. Okay, but it helped answer a lot of questions. So the first one that we saw it was from the person who was behind him when he was driving on the northbound. Okay, and the northbound lane where he was driving is up here like this. The southbound is here, and the median is actually a hill. And so you see him driving along, and I can't remember the exact order of events, but at one point he speeds up, and they had told me that he sped up, and I just assumed he was passing somebody. But he wasn't. There was nobody there. He was speeding up for no reason, which is really, really unlike him. It was just very strange. And then he was kind of weaving. I think at one point he went into the right-hand lane and came back into the left. I mean, he stayed in the right-hand lane for just a little bit, so it wasn't like he went there and then came right back. But if I remember correctly. But what happened that was shocking and terrifying was that all of a sudden he jerked to the left 90 degrees and just flew down the hill. And it was like, oh my gosh, what on earth just happened? And that was the point where I seriously, for a few seconds, I thought I was having a heart attack. It was probably just like something of an anxiety attack, but it didn't go into a full-blown one, thank goodness. So anyway, so we watched that a few times because I just really needed to see it and understand it. And I was very convinced from that it was definitely, there was something medical that happened. I don't know if it was a heart attack or what, I don't know. But it just had to be. There was no, it didn't fit the way that he drives at all. And it was just really, really weird, and it was terrifying. So the other video was actually from the dash cam of a highway patrol officer, and he was driving along there, and you see out of the, let's go this way, you see out of the corner of it, you see Bill suddenly turn, you see this big dust, and you see his pickup truck come straight down the hill, and he barely missed the highway patrol officer, went behind him, and then hit the other car, and which I saw a picture of when it was afterwards, and it was like really horrible. And again, that just, oh my gosh, that just weighs on my heart so much, and I've been praying for that family because I know the horror that I've been going through, and I'm sure that it was just every bit as traumatic for them, and I don't even know if they have faith or anything that can comfort them or anything. I don't know. And so, oh my gosh, it was just like, yeah, it was really. So after that, we went to the funeral home, and I got Bill's ashes, which are in a temporary container right now. But it's it's a nice black container, so it's like it's not weird looking or anything like that, but it's just not what I'm going to have him permanently in. What was I going to say? Anyway, so basically that's what we did there. And then we went to the hospital that he had been taken to. And this was the first time that we had been there. But I wanted to get his medical records because I thought that would help. And it did. That also really helped because it explained all the injuries that he had and what had been done for him in the ambulance on the way there and everything. And so I was absolutely, completely satisfied that they had done everything that they could, and that he would not have lived, and and if he had made it to the hospital and they had put him on life support or something, it probably just would have prolonged his pain and suffering. And so I think everything happened the way that once he left the road, everything happened in the best way possible for him. I totally wish that he hadn't hit anybody else, but as far as for him, I know. I hope that you can understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I wish he was dead or anything, but when he left that road, something had happened, and he wasn't going to survive. I mean, that was very, very evident. So then the last place that we went was to the wrecking yard where they had stored Bill's truck, and where for some reason it hadn't been released to the insurance yet. And so the insurance people had told me to go ahead and get the other things that I wanted to get from there. And one of the things was our keys, because Bill had a keychain full of keys, and I didn't want those just floating around out there. Well, it's like a very simple thing. You just go and look at the ignition, right? No, the ignition is missing. It is gone. It's like, just nowhere. The steering wheel was broken off and hanging by wires down onto the floor. The part that had the ignition was gone. I mean, it's just like, oh my word, and then part of the engine's missing, and yeah, I mean, it's just, wow. Wow, wow, wow. So one thing that I want to say, I'm going through a little anger here at Bill. I love him. I love him so much. Please understand that I forgive him for what I'm angry at him about. But it's you go through this. This is just part of the grief process. So I'm not disrespecting him or anything, but it's like I didn't want him to go. It was just like it wasn't necessary. It was for financial reasons as much as anything else. It was also statistically. I kept telling him statistically, you're traveling so much that either you're going to get a ticket or get into an accident or something. And then also, I just felt like it wasn't necessary for us to, I was supposed to go with him. It wasn't necessary for us to take the time off work, which was going to cost us a heck of a lot of money. And, to rent a trailer to pull the stuff in, because our pickup truck, the bed, it was pretty small, so it wouldn't hold everything. And, and there wasn't a lot of stuff to get, and it wasn't anything like, it was special, but it wasn't like life or death special. It wasn't like, yeah, and I felt like his granddaughter and grandson-in-law lived there, and they hadn't come down to visit us yet, and I knew that they wanted to at some point, and so I thought they could go over and get the stuff and store it in their basement and bring it down whenever they came to visit, and that would have been sufficient. And I was just really bugged that he was going to do this, especially when it turned out that I couldn't go, and so I didn't want him to go, and but I didn't have a really compelling reason. I mean, I have to admit that I didn't have a really compelling reason, but it wasn't reasonable to me for him to go, but it was really reasonable to him to go. He just really felt like he needed to do that. And so, so he did. But here's the thing, you guys, is when you're married, you carry the other person's life in your hands. When he died, because he made that decision to go against my will, I didn't have any say in it, but I'm the person who's affected the most by it. Yes, he died. He was definitely affected. But you know what? He's in heaven. He's happy. He's with Beth. He's really happy with her, which again, doesn't mean that he loved me less or anything like that. That's a whole different thing. But I'm happy that he's happy, but I'm left with the pain and suffering of him being gone. I'm left with having to try to figure out the finances. I'm left with having to try to figure out my life. I'm left with 5 animals to take care of when I can barely walk. It's just like all this stuff, and I didn't get a say in it. And so I really, really want to exhort you guys. First of all, men, listen to your wives, for Pete's sake. I'm sorry, but so often I hear men say, oh, I should have listened to my wife. Well, duh. It's like, we know something. We're not stupid. So listen to us. And secondly, take into consideration that what you do really, really affects us. And this goes both ways, but I think more often women tend to listen to their husbands more than men listen to their wives. And more often I hear men say that they should have listened to their wives. And this was a fatal error, him not listening to me. If he had listened to me, even though I didn't have a really, really good reason, I didn't want him to go. And I didn't feel like it was necessary, and it was going to take a lot of money, and it would have saved his life if he had listened to me. And it would have saved my life. So I just, guys, please listen to your wives. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything that they say, but let them have some input into these things that, if something happens, will affect them. So, that's what I want to say about that. Okay. The other thing is, again, and I think that, my friends and probably those of you who are watching this are really being hit with, like I am, the fact that somebody can be taken from you just suddenly in a moment. And that really is a huge thing. It's incredibly traumatic because you have no opportunity to prepare. I had no clue that he was going to be taken from me. Even though I didn't want him to go, I did not imagine that he would be killed or anything like that. It was more like, we're wasting money, he might get a ticket, he might get into a vendor bender or something like that. It did not really occur to me that he might die. And so it is like a huge, huge, huge trauma on top of losing somebody. And just the suddenness of it and the end of it all. It's oh my gosh, it's just like so Oh, it's traumatic. That's the only word I can use, is it's traumatic. Um, so just be aware of that. You know, when you say goodbye, Bill and I held each other for a long time because we knew that we would miss each other. We had no inkling of what was going to happen. Maybe we would have held each other even longer. I don't know. But we held each other. We were very affectionate towards each other. I have no regrets about our goodbye. I also have, no regrets about, I always said I love you. He always said he loved me. I knew that he cherished me. He knew that I loved him and cherished him. And we both said often that we loved being married to each other and that we were happy with our life. Even though we had so many struggles, we were happy with where we were going and where we were ultimately going to be when we got through these struggles and everything. So I have no regrets, and I just want to encourage you not to have any regrets. If something happens to your husband suddenly, just, seriously, if I had it to do over again, and again, I don't have any regrets, but I think I would think every time, what if he doesn't come home to me? Not in order to be paranoid or anything, but just to, sorry, my phone's ringing, I'm trying to ignore it. Just to have that no regrets, that lack of regrets, just to think of and treasure each moment as if it's going to be your last moment together. I think there's no harm done in that. I'm not saying to worry about it or anything like that, but just to really, really be sure that the other person knows that you cherish them and that you treasure them. That has helped me a lot, knowing that Bill really cherished me and treasured me, and he loved the things that I did, and he thought I was cute, and for the stupid things that I did, he just really loved them because it made me cute to him. And it's like he was really one of a kind, and in every way, but especially in how he loved me. And build that with each other, build that kind of thing, that you'll have something to really cherish when something does happen to the other, because it's highly unlikely that you're both going to die together, even though I had that somehow in my imagination that we would both die together in a car accident someday. I was just convinced in some ways. There was part of me that knew I would probably be left alone at some point, but it was a long ways in the future. But there was also part of me that believed we were so knit together that we would die together. And I think I was more convinced of that than the other. And yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. So basically just treasure each other. I hope that this hasn't been too upsetting or unnerving or presumptuous of me to tell you men to please listen to your wives, but I just needed to say that. And I hope it hasn't freaked out anybody that I'm saving this ugly chunk of something. And if you know what it is, please tell me. I would really appreciate knowing. I want to know what to call this thing. And my dad's not into cars. He won't be able to tell me, I don't think. So anyway, I love you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.